My parents thought they could sell my dead husband's house without asking me, pocket $400,000, and I'd just smile and move on because family helps family. When the lawyer read the clause Daniel had hidden in the deed, my mother's face went from confident to ashen in under 10 seconds. They hadn't just stolen my home, they'd triggered something that would cost them everything. My name is Claire Donovan, and I'm 29 years old. I'm an ICU nurse at Portland General, which means I work nights, weekends, and every holiday someone else wants off. I've held hands with dying patients at 3 a.m., explained to families why we had to let go, and learned to compartmentalize grief in ways that would terrify a normal person. But nothing in my training prepared me for the grief of losing Daniel. He died 2 years ago. Sudden cardiac arrest at 32 while playing basketball with his college buddies on a Saturday morning. One moment he was laughing, calling for the ball. The next, he was on the ground. By the time the ambulance arrived, he was gone. I wasn't even there. I was finishing a 12-hour shift, daydreaming about the pancakes he'd promised to make when I got home. Instead, I got a phone call that ended my entire world. The house was all I had left of him. Not just financially, though that was true enough. Daniel's life insurance barely covered his funeral and the medical bills the hospital couldn't write off. But the house, our house, was paid off. He'd worked 2 jobs for 3 years to make sure of that, saying he wanted me to always have a roof over my head no matter what happened. He used to joke about it, calling it his just in case I get hit by a bus plan. The joke stopped being funny the day I became a widow at 27. Every room in that house held him. The kitchen where he'd dance with me while water boiled, the living room where we'd argued about paint colors and he'd let me win, smiling that smile that said he didn't care about the walls as long as I was in them. The bedroom where I still slept on my side, unable to spread out into the space he used to fill. I couldn't afford to keep it, not on a nurse's salary, so I rented it out to a quiet couple who paid on time and didn't ask questions. The rent covered the property taxes and utilities and gave me a small cushion each month. It wasn't much, but it was stable. It was mine. It was his final gift. My parents had the spare keys. I'd given them to my mother a year after Daniel died when I couldn't handle going back to check on things between tenants. She'd offered to manage it, and I'd been too numb to argue. My father even helped me interview renters, acting like the concerned parent, making sure his grieving daughter wasn't taken advantage of. I'd been grateful then. I'd thought it meant they cared. The call came on a Tuesday at 6:43 in the morning. I was 3 hours into a shift that had already included one code blue, 2 combative patients, and a family screaming at me because we couldn't save their father from 50 years of cigarettes and denial. My phone buzzed in my scrub pocket during a rare moment of stillness at the nurse's station. My mother's name lit up the screen. I almost sent it to voicemail, but guilt is a reflex nurses can't seem to unlearn. "Claire, sweetheart." Her voice was bright, energized in a way that immediately set off alarms. My mother only sounded cheerful when she wanted something or had done something she thought I'd forgive. "I have wonderful news." I leaned against the counter, already exhausted. "What's going on, Mom?" "Well, your father and I solved a big problem. You know how your sister's been struggling with the divorce, all those legal fees, and needing a fresh start?" She paused like she expected me to congratulate her. "Well, we found a solution. We sold the house." For a moment, the words didn't connect. My brain was still in ICU mode, tracking vitals and dosages, not processing whatever nonsense my mother was saying. "What house?" "Your house, honey. Daniel's old place. We got an incredible offer. $400,000. Can you believe it? The market's been so good, and we knew you'd understand. Your sister needs this. She's family." The nurse's station tilted slightly. I gripped the edge of the counter, my knuckles going white. "You sold my house." "We handled everything. The paperwork, the closing, even dealt with the tenants. You've been so busy with work, we didn't want to burden you with the details." Her tone shifted, became gentle, persuasive. Claire, you weren't even living there. It was just sitting empty most of the time, and Vanessa is drowning. The lawyers are bleeding her dry, and she needs money for an apartment, furniture, a security deposit. This is what family does. We help each other. That house is mine. My voice came out flat, distant, like I was listening to someone else speak. Daniel left it to me. And now it's helping your sister start over. You can find another place, something smaller, more practical. You're young, you'll bounce back. She paused, then added the line I knew was coming. Daniel would have wanted you to help family. He was always so generous. She was using my dead husband to justify robbing me. I closed my eyes, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. Where's the money? Well, most of it went to Vanessa's legal fees and her deposit on that lovely condo downtown. Your father and I kept a small portion for our trouble, managing everything, handling the sale. But don't worry, there's still some left. We'll send you a check. A check? For my house, for Daniel's house, for the only piece of stability I had left in a world that had already taken everything? How much? $15,000. That's more than fair, Claire. We did all the work. $15,000 out of $400,000. They'd given me less than 4% of my own house and expected gratitude. I heard a monitor beeping down the hall, a patient needing something. Life continuing while mine imploded. I have to go, I said. Claire, don't be dramatic about this. It's done. The papers are signed. You'll see, this is for the best. I hung up without responding. My hands were shaking. I walked into the supply closet, closed the door, and stood there in the dark, surrounded by sterile packages and IV bags, trying to remember how to breathe. I survived Daniel's death. I survived the funeral, the sympathy cards, the people who stopped calling after 6 months. I survived 2 years of sleeping alone and working myself numb. But this felt like a different kind of death. The death of the illusion that I had anyone in my corner. I called my sister during my break. Vanessa answered on the 4th ring, her voice sleepy and annoyed. Claire, it's early. What do you want? Did you know they were selling my house? Silence. Then, defensively, they said you were okay with it. They lied. Look, I needed the money. My lawyer is charging me $500 an hour, and Brad's trying to take everything in the divorce. I didn't have a choice. You had a choice. You could have asked me. And you would have said no. Her voice sharpened. You've always had it easier than me. You had Daniel, you had the house, you have your perfect little nursing career. I lost my marriage. I lost my lifestyle. Mom and Dad were just helping me get back on my feet. Daniel's dead, Vanessa. Yeah, 2 years ago. At some point, you have to move on. That house was just wood and drywall. You're acting like they sold your husband. Oh, wait, you can't sell something that's already gone. I hung up. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there in the break room with my cold coffee and stale vending machine crackers, feeling the last threads of family obligations snap one by one. When my shift ended, I drove straight to the county recorder's office. I hadn't looked at the deed in 2 years, hadn't needed to, but something Daniel had said once back when we first bought the house was circling in my mind. He'd been weirdly insistent about adding protections, talking to lawyers, making sure everything was airtight. I'd laughed at him then, called him paranoid. Now I needed to know what he'd done. The clerk pulled up the property record and printed it for me. I sat in my car in the parking lot, scanning through pages of legal jargon until I found it. Section 12, subsection C, in language so dense I almost missed it. In the event of sale, transfer, or conveyance of the property, without the express, written, and notarized consent of Claire Marie Donovan, sole surviving heir and primary beneficiary, the transaction shall be deemed void ab initio. Any funds exchanged shall be subject to immediate return plus liquidated damages equal to 50% of sale price, payable to Claire Marie Donovan within 30 days of discovery. Failure to comply will result in automatic lien against all assets of the selling parties. I read it 3 times. Daniel had built a trap. He'd known somehow that I'd need protection even from my own family, and now my parents had walked right into it. I called the lawyer whose name was on the deed, a man named Robert Hayes who'd handled Daniel's estate. He remembered me immediately. "Mrs. Donovan, I've been expecting your call. You knew about the clause. Your husband was very specific about his concerns. He wanted to make sure no one could take advantage of you if something happened to him." His voice was gentle but professional. "I've already been contacted by the title company. They're aware the sale violated the deed restrictions. Your parents forged your signature on the consent form." Forged. They hadn't just sold my house, they'd committed fraud. "What happens now?" I asked. "The sale is void. The buyers will get their money back from escrow. Your parents and sister, however, have already spent the funds. They'll be liable for the full purchase price plus $200,000 in liquidated damages, $600,000 total." He paused. "There's also the matter of the forgery, which is a felony. I can refer you to a criminal attorney if you'd like to pursue charges." $600,000? My parents didn't have that kind of money. Neither did Vanessa. What if they can't pay? Then we file liens against their assets. Their house, cars, bank accounts, retirement funds. Everything gets frozen until the debt is satisfied. If necessary, we force sales. I sat in that parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at the legal document in my hands. Daniel had loved me so much he'd built a shield I didn't even know existed. And my parents had loved me so little they'd tried to tear it down for my sister's convenience. I called my mother. She answered immediately, her voice tense. "Claire, we need to talk. You forged my signature." "We were trying to help Vanessa. You wouldn't have understood. You've always been stubborn about that house." "You committed fraud. The sale is void. You owe $600,000. The line went so quiet, I thought she'd hung up. Then, in a voice I'd never heard from her before, small and terrified, "That's not possible. The sale went through. The money's spent. Daniel put a protection clause in the deed. You sold my house without my consent. Now you have to give back the $400,000 plus $200,000 in damages. You have 30 days. "We don't have that kind of money," her voice cracked. "Claire, please, you can't do this to us. We're your parents. We made a mistake, but you can't destroy your family over this. You destroyed it when you sold my husband's house to pay for Vanessa's divorce. She's your sister. And that house was all I had left of my husband. You chose her over me, so now you get to live with that choice." My father got on the line, his voice hard and angry. "You're going to regret this. Family doesn't sue family. You'll be alone, Claire. No parents, no sister, no Daniel. Just yourself and your bitterness." "I've been alone since Daniel died," I said quietly. "You were just too busy helping Vanessa to notice." I hung up. The lawyer filed the paperwork the next day. Within a week, liens appeared on my parents' house, their cars, their accounts. Vanessa's new condo, the one she'd put a deposit on with my money, fell through when her bank accounts froze. My mother called 17 times. I didn't answer. My father sent an email calling me vindictive and cruel. I deleted it without reading past the subject line. The family group chat exploded. Aunts and uncles I hadn't heard from in years suddenly had opinions about my choices, about forgiveness, about how Daniel wouldn't have wanted this. I left the chat, blocked the numbers, let them think whatever they wanted. 3 weeks later, my parents' lawyer called mine with a settlement offer. They'd sell their house, liquidate their retirement accounts, and pay back every cent. In exchange, I'd agree not to press criminal charges for the forgery. I took the deal, not because I forgave them, but because I was tired and because Daniel had already won. The money came through on a gray Thursday afternoon, $600,000 deposited into my account in one lump sum. I stared at the number on my phone screen, sitting in my car outside the hospital before another night shift. It was more money than I'd ever seen in my life, more than the house was worth, more than Daniel's life insurance, more than 2 years of nursing shifts. But it wasn't about the money. It had never been about the money. I bought a new house a month later, smaller than the one Daniel and I had shared, but mine, truly mine. I furnished it slowly, carefully, choosing things that felt like the future instead of the past. I hung his picture in the living room, the one where he's laughing at something I'd said, his eyes crinkled at the corners. I talked to him sometimes, late at night when the house was quiet. "You knew," I said to the picture. "You knew they'd try something like this, didn't you?" He didn't answer, obviously, but I could imagine what he'd say. Something about trusting people to be who they've always been. Something about protecting the people you love even after you're gone. Something about how family is supposed to be a shelter, not a storm. My parents lost their house. Vanessa lost her condo dream and moved into a studio apartment she could barely afford. The family fractured into those who thought I was justified and those who thought I was cruel. I didn't ask which side anyone fell on. It didn't matter. On the 2-year anniversary of buying my new house, I got a letter. No return address, but I recognized Vanessa's handwriting. Inside was a single sentence. "I'm sorry, you were right." I kept the letter. I didn't respond. Some apologies come too late to build bridges, but early enough to acknowledge that bridges existed once. I still work nights at Portland General. I still hold hands with dying patients and help families say goodbye. But now, when I come home to a place that no one can take from me, a place built on the foundation of someone who loved me more than I understood while he was alive. Daniel gave me that house, and then he gave me the strength to fight for it even after he was gone. My parents taught me that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, and I learned that sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to let people treat you like you're disposable. If you're the person in your family who always gives, always sacrifices, always gets told to understand and be reasonable, I want you to know something Daniel taught me. You're allowed to protect what's yours. You're allowed to say no, and you're allowed to walk away from people who only see you as a resource to be drained. The people who love you won't ask you to set yourself on fire to keep them warm. They'll build you a house with a lock only you hold the key to, and they'll make sure no one, not even family, can take it away.